Everything the Skeksis ever told us was a lie. And now everyone is at risk.
The original film, Dark Crystal, was 5 years of my life. And here we were doing 10 episodes done in an incredibly short time. First of all, it was terror. And then it was just a lot of hard work. I just sat at the drawing board and started. I was the designer for the original movie, so I've been working on this a long time. It's really exciting that finally, after all these years, that we could bring it to life again on a TV screen.
Obviously, being the son of Brian Froud and Wendy Froud, it's always been in my life. I was born during Labyrinth. I was a part of that, but the Dark Crystal's always been something that people have cherished, and I've grown up realizing that. Then the series came around and got the opportunity to work, alongside my parents and the Jim Henson company to create the whole new series, a whole new, prequel to the movie, and actually work with a lot of those artists that stated, Dark Crystal was the reason they got into the industry. So it was really a fascinating and wonderful experience.
I don't think anything will ever be like it was again.
No. It will be better.
The style came from Brian, the look and feel. And the puppetry and the sort of heart and technical wizardry came from Frank Oz and Jim Henson. They both, directed the original together, but it was, the Hensons brought that whole sort of heart and soul of puppetry to the characters. We strove to, recreate and push further in the new series.
I demand the truth!
I don't know the complete total number, but certainly over 100 different characters and creatures, and a whole host of Gelfling. All sorts of different clans and characters that we had to create. They're the Stonewood clan, the Doosan, the Groton, the Sprighton, the Vapran, and the Drenchen, and the Seafin. And then we did 2 mystics as well, a land strider. We did all sorts. If you haven't seen the show, we've just spoiled it. The actually interesting thing is that everything has to be light because they're puppets. We're not building costumes for humans, so that can be at any weight it needs to be depending on the fabrics you're using. But we had to choose very light fabrics, or as light as possible, and make them feel heavy and make them look as if they have weight and drape and shape and form and flow at scale as they move around throughout the series. And that comes from, a Gelfling, which is about 40 inches, to a Skeksis, which is just about 5 feet, maybe.
We are lords of the crystal, and will rule for all ages yet to come. We are eternal!
The Emperor was technically, someone from the original film, but we only saw him on his deathbed. So, what does he look like at this time? Starting with your design, Brian, you did color sketches of the Emperor, in which we had the sculptors start on the head and hands, whilst the costume department started on draping costume over body forms, breaking down what those different fabrics were, laying out the silks that would come underneath, then the ornate armored sort of frontispiece, chest pieces. We're always talking to the costumers and the creative, wonderful team that we had. They would always say, all right, got to imagine certain things. So think of Liberace meets Lord Rochester, because that's exactly who he sort of is. And he's mean and fabulous at the same time. Each Skeksis costume took at least 2 to 3 months to make. As well as that, moving along, it was sculpting, molding, casting, and facial head mechanics for 2 heads for the Skeksis, with and an internal fabricated backpack rig for the puppeteer to wear. Everything could be shifted and changed so that we could have a smaller performer be inside of the costume for walk-around shots. So we could put floors in and have Skeksis walk across floors.
Join me, so we may finally unite as one against our true foe.
That's the most dramatic moment, is the moment where you have to let go of a costume, because these things have been, worked on for months. Often, we never saw something fully finished, and literally to the last minute until it was brought onto set, and it had to be right. We knew there was no going back at that moment. So it had to be beautiful, and it was.
A wonderful moment is, I mean, it was the first time that Chamberlain was brought to set. So you have to imagine we're in a big studio warehouse that, we're on one set and they're building another set. So you've got your builders and craftsmen and all sorts of, people doing, big manly things. And everything stopped. We noticed everyone had stopped for just a moment, just to watch Chamberlain walk out onto set. He was being brought out, and it was always a magical moment when you're on a set and then all of a sudden these characters are their own. They are truly alive.
The original film, I think, has had longevity. For the reviewing it, they like to see it again and again because they see in it, in the landscapes, different creatures. Also, they get different meanings, and because it's all pinned together with symbols. And so there's always something to connect to, and that shows up in all the costuming.
That's true. As a series, you can watch this again and again, and you will always find something new, and you'll see a new aspect, a new character, a new piece, a new symbol, new detail every single time you watch it. People watch the movie that way and have always seen something new, and you can watch the series that way. Every time you rewatch it, you get to see something new and you realize something else, and that's truly magical. It's really amazing to have the ability for a production to do that.